Because the world is full of bland black-eyed pea dishes and people who think they don't like black-eyed peas, most of whom have never had them, I want to share how to make good southern spiced up black-eyed peas with a kick. So you can do this one of three ways. You can get a whole bunch of black-eyed peas or purple whole peas and shell them fresh. You can get some fresh frozen peas. These were flash frozen. These are fresh. Or you can get the dried. Don't get the canned. If you get the dried, follow the directions, soak them overnight, or give them some boiling water and then let them soak about an hour or two. With the frozen ones or the fresh ones, these I let them thaw, rinse them out, put them in a big pot of water. A lot of the little bits like this that are just shells, no real pea there, float to the top, you can get rid of them. And so these have been thawed and rinsed, and most of the little bits are out, and just put to the side. Let me show you the next important step. You want some kind of smoky, fatty base for this. I'm using some ham hocks. This is one of the three I have. Usually I get the whole ham hock, which is about this big. For whatever reason this year, the only one that had it in stock had these sliced. That'll work fine for my needs. If you don't want to do pork, you can also do smoked turkey. You can do turkey wings, turkey necks, smoked turkey drumsticks. If you want to do a vegetarian version of this, you can use maybe some shiitake mushrooms and some smoked poblano peppers or something like that to give that depth, and just use olive oil in place of whatever fat this would have had. And if you do a turkey, you'll want to do some oil as well. But with the ham hock, which is smoked and has a good bit of fat, you don't need to add any fat at the beginning. Some people do hog maw or jowl. That's way too fatty, or they'll just do strips of bacon. That can be all right, but it doesn't have the nice bits of meat, because this will all get very tender with slow cooking, and there'll be little pieces of ham distributed throughout the peas. So let me put this to the side. Got 2 medium white onions. You can use 1 large white onion. You can use yellow if you want. Don't use red. Yellow, I think, is too sweet with a slow cook. I like the white. So I'm not going for anything fancy on this. I'm just going to get them kind of coarse chopped. And again, I'm not trying to do anything fancy. I don't mind if there's fairly large pieces in this, because it cooks so slowly. This is a fairly slow cooking, long cooking dish. These are going to be tender and almost melt away, but they will give everything some nice flavor. If you want, at the very end or on the individual servings, you can sprinkle some fresh green onion, or you can reserve a little bit of the white onion and chop it real fine and add that at the last. All right, good coarse chopped onion. Let me add some garlic to the mix. I had 2 half heads of garlic left from Christmas. The thing you want to have is something which has those little bits here. The ones that are all scooped out and smooth at this end are imported from China. They don't taste the same as U.S. garlic. They take that off of the ones they bring in so they can't germinate here. What you don't want, this is the one that I'm rejecting, this little bunch, the ones which are sprouted, because once that begins to sprout, this will be bitter. You want the ones which are not sprouted, that have no black spots, that aren't all dried out. These should be fine. Just gonna take the ends off. You can use a garlic press if you want. I find this works just fine. Just kind of break it with the flat of the knife. Sometimes you have to turn it, and then it should peel just fine, and the outer bit should fall away. And while I'm getting this ready, garlic is an odd thing in that its flavor changes by temperature and by surface area, how much of it is exposed to heat. So if you chop it up really fine, you're going to get a very strong, intense garlic flavor that can be bitter. I'm going to do fairly large pieces because I want any pieces to be kind of sweet. Not as sweet as if I were to roast a head of garlic, but this will add a nice depth of flavor to the dish without being bitter or challenging. And again, just a rough chop will do for this. Think of this as like going into a stew. Now, a lot of times if I'm sauteing things, I will do the onions first and the garlic later, because the garlic is smaller and can, by the time the onions really softens up, the garlic can be overcooked or even burned. But I'm just gonna give this a little bit of time in some oil before adding other stuff, because this is gonna be a real slow process of cooking this. And even if these things aren't translucent when I add the rest, they will be nice and soft and tasty when everything else is added. Next thing we're gonna need is some crushed red pepper, the good stuff, with a nice heat to it. You can also use little dried red chilies. I got some of those from an Asian market, but they were chopped, and I found that I like it better when they're whole because you can pick them out much more easily. But they were chopped, and you just ends up with little bits of skin everywhere. So I'm just going for the red flakes, the crushed seeds. Give a good flavor, but no one bite will have any leathery bit left over in the mouth. So let me move over to the stove now. First of all, let's take a moment to mourn what someone did to my enamel coated Dutch oven. My beautiful Le Creuset. I'm gonna have to replace this at some point, but they're so expensive. But someone used the wrong tool. I use wooden and plastic utensils. Someone used a metal utensil and killed my enamel. It'll still be fine for this. I'm gonna turn this evil electric stove onto a medium low. And I'm not sauteing this. I just want to get some of the fat rendered and a little bit of the smoky flavor accelerated. So I'm putting the ham hock in here, letting it come up to temp. And I'll show you what that looks like as this comes up. All right, as you can tell, I trimmed some of the fat off this piece. I thought it was just excessive. And I've just had this in here for a while. I'm not really trying to brown it or sear it. Just start the process. It'll give a nice depth of flavor and get some of that flavor into the pan. I'll take these out for a little bit, put them to the side. Just wanted that little bit of fat there. And in the final dish, later I'll pull these out when they're all ready to be, they'll be pull apart tender. And at that point, I'll slice out little pockets of fat that might remain. So I'm adding a little bit of olive oil now. All right, I can see it moving now. So into the oil, I'm gonna add the crushed red pepper flakes. That way they will flavor the oil very strongly. This thing will be pretty darn spicy. This is the part where do it to taste. I don't have measurements for this. You can always add more, you can't take it out. That's gonna be real nice. And we have hot sauce to take it past that if necessary. In go the onions and the garlic. All right, that's good enough. Doesn't have to be translucent. It's gonna have a lot of cooking with a lot of liquid. I'm gonna add the ham hocks back in. You can use as much as little as you want. I like the little bits of meat mixed in throughout things. Next, I'm adding a beer, Dos Equis Amber. Anything that you like the taste of. I wouldn't recommend anything too hoppy, and no seasonal wheat sugar beers or anything, but a Pilsner or a ale or anything that's really good, that's drinkable, that's not peculiar. And we're gonna add some chicken stock to that. And I'm gonna bring this to a simmer and let it go for maybe 45 minutes. I'm gonna add some water, but maybe an inch of water on top of that, because I want to start the process of getting that pork nice and tender, and the ham nice and tender, because otherwise, and the bone to put the collagen into everything, because the peas take a while, but I want to give everything a head start before I add the black-eyed peas. If any of you are watching this from France or Spain, you'll notice that this is not too dissimilar from a cassoulet, though it'll be done on the stovetop, not the onion, and the lid won't be put on at any point, but the basic approach is much the same with black-eyed peas instead of beans. All right, once it gets to the point where the pork is beginning to get tender and fall away from the bone, so everything has been in there a while and the onions are reduced to that. If you want to have a fresher onion taste, now would be the time to add some additional onion that won't cook down quite so much. This is reduced a lot, so I'm going to add some liquid, add the peas, and bring all that to a boil. All right, I add some more water because that stock has been concentrated, and put in the peas, which are cold, so it'll take a while to come to a boil. But that's about the amount of liquid to peas we want. It'll cook down some more. Now the fresh peas like these, now fresh peas cook faster. These flash frozen peas cook almost as fast. If you had them dried and reconstituted with some water, they can take a while. This may still be an hour or more. I want them tender but not mushy. That's the fine line to walk, because a lot of people serve black-eyed peas like it's some kind of sludge. You don't want that, but you don't want them at all crunchy. They need to be soft but still individual peas. So we'll check back. All right, much later, I removed the ham at one point and removed the bones and the rind and large bits of fat. And the peas are soft but not mushy, and everything's reduced down. And I gave it some fresh black pepper at the end, a little bit of salt, and here at the end I'm going to add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce to it. If you do this too early in the process, things can get too strong as far as this goes, and the pepper can get muddy if it cooks for too long. I like that fresh taste. Now this does not look very appetizing to many of you, but I will show you how it appears on the plate, and it is quite delicious. I'm going to serve this over rice. Give it a taste. Chef's prerogative. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to turn this off. Just leave the lid on it. Wait for the cornbread to come out of the oven in about 12 minutes, and the rice should be ready about the same time. And Mom made a big mess of greens, mostly turnip, some collard, some mustard. I'll show you the plate. All right, I got to do this fast. My family's waiting to eat. But I've got the greens for money, the peas for luck, the rice for flavor, the cornbread because I'm civilized, and some red onion because my mama likes it, and one of those Dos Equis Ambers for us. Everyone have a wonderful New Year's. To my Scottish fans, happy Hogmanay. Go have a wee dram on us.